Good evening, everyone. Ready to start the meeting? I'll begin the meeting by acknowledging the continuing connection of Aboriginal people to country. We'll begin the meeting by acknowledging the continuing connection of Aboriginal people to country, culture and community, including traditional custodians of this land, the Wadandi and Kaniyang people of the Noongar Nation, and paying respects to elders past and present. I'll declare the meeting open at 5:01 p.m. This meeting is being live streamed and digitally recorded in accordance with Council Policy EM-CP2. Members of the public are reminded that no other visual or audio recording of this meeting by any other means is allowed without the permission of the chairperson. Whilst every endeavour has been made to only record those who are actively participating in the meeting, loud comments or noises may be picked up on the recording. In attendance, to my left, we have Tim Clinch, Chief Executive Officer, Lauren Clifford, Manager Corporate Services, Samantha Farquhar, Administration Officer Corporate Services, and to my right, we have Morris Batalana, Director of Finance and Corporate Services. Also attending is Michelle Dennis, Manager Development Services, and Stuart Eaton, Manager of Finance Projects. Councillors attending are Councillor John Bailey, to my left, Councillor Alexis Davey, Councillor Anita Lindeman, Councillor Grant Patrick, and Councillor Lisa Glover. My name is Vivian McCarthy, President of the Shire President. I also welcome in the gallery Tyler Hall and Sue Martin, who will be doing a deputation tonight. We also have Peter Gubler attending tonight. Right on cue, Councillor Gubler. Excuse me, CEO Clinch, do we have Councillor Mitchell online? Not yet. Okay. In apologies, at 2.1 in the agenda we have Councillor Anne Mitchell, who may or may not be attending later through a Teams link. Approve leave of absence at 2.2. At a special council meeting held 3rd of July 2024, Council resolved the following: Resolution 11224, that Council approves Councillor Diana Shan's request for a leave of absence for the ordinary council meeting held on the 28th of August 2024. Are there any other requests for leave of absence? Thank you. Moving on to item 3, announcements from the presiding member. I have 3 announcements to make tonight. The first is regarding our meeting tonight, and it's that Council is reintroducing the adoption by exception process, which is also known as en bloc. This procedure allows Council to adopt multiple reports or recommendations in a single resolution. The aim is to handle routine, generally agreed upon matters more efficiently, and giving Council more time to focus on the items that require more in-depth discussion or debate. It is important to understand that items included in the adoption by exception are not less important. Instead, they are considered by all councillors to be straightforward or non-controversial based on the information available. Certain items, such as those requiring an absolute majority, those involving a conflict of interest, or items that a council member wishes to discuss further, cannot be included in this process. During the meeting, the adoption by exception resolution will be addressed after item 6.3, deputations. This process ensures that all matters are addressed with due regard and at the same time helps Council to manage its time effectively. Our second announcement, I'd like to raise awareness of the Aspire Australia Day campaign and Community Citizen of the Year Awards. This program acknowledges those who make an outstanding contribution to our local community. And those who are watching through live stream and those in the public gallery are encouraged to nominate or recognise any community member for their efforts in areas such as education, health, fundraising, charitable or voluntary services, business efforts, sports, arts, the environment, social inclusion, or any area that enhances community wellbeing. And this is the opportunity to recognise those efforts. The program encourages people to provide some detailed information about their nominee for consideration by a panel in the selection processes. Categories include Community Citizen of the Year for youth, Senior Community Citizen of the Year, Community Citizen of the Year, and Active Citizenship for a group or event. The nominations are open from the 1st of September and close on the 31st of October 2024. And finally, every year the Shire holds a photographic competition with selected entries included in the Shire calendar. And this year the theme is Now and Then. While it isn't mandatory to include a before image, it is preferred. A description of the location or place captured in the image and its historical significance is required, and the image has to be from within the Shire. The entry fee is open to all residents and visitors to the Shire, and you can find more detail by visiting the Shire website or by emailing or calling the Shire office. Entries for the photographic competition are open from the 1st of September and close on the 30th of September.
Councillor Mitchell is ready to attend.
Welcome, Councillor Mitchell. Would you like to read out?
Yes, just my apologies for this. I had a small IT issue. Sorry. Oh, the red bit. Yes. Pursuant to Section 14CA(5) of Local Government Administration Regulations 1996, I, Councillor Anne Mitchell, declare that I'm situated in a location where I can maintain confidentiality throughout the duration of the meeting. On the side of the road, 10 k's out of Lake Grace. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's dedication, Councillor Mitchell.
My apologies, people. It's all about me. I haven't missed an OCM yet, and I'm not going to start now.
Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Okay, moving on to item 4, declarations of interest. Division 6, Subdivision 1 of the Local Government Act 1995. Care should be taken by all councillors to ensure that a financial impartiality interest is declared and that they refrain from voting on any matter which is considered to come within the ambit of the Act. Councillor Gubler declared an indirect financial interest regarding item 9.1.2 as he transports wedding guests and bike riders to lot 945 Southampton Road, Balingup. Item 5, public question time. We have no responses to previous public questions that were taken on notice. Item 5.2, are there any questions from the gallery? Thank you. Item 6, presentations. We have no petitions or presentations, but at item 6.3, I'd like to welcome a deputation from Mr. Tyler Hall regarding his proposal for a Donnybrook Junior Sporting Organisation.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Hello, my name is Tyler Hall. I reside at 9 Kelly Street in Donnybrook. My deputation tonight is to address a pressing issue I feel for the need of a centralised junior sport organisation within Donnybrook that will provide support and resources necessary to sustain and grow junior sports across the Shire. I'd just like to start also by thanking contributors to support me in being here tonight. Peter Worsfold and Gary Damasi, both in the footy club, and Daniel Towers from the cricket club, who I've managed to speak to on short notice this week. Just a bit about me. So I moved to the town with my wife and 3 kids back in 2022, and we fell in love with the small country town. And we've since become deeply invested in the community. This year I became involved with junior football by coaching my son's Year 3 team and being a member of the junior football committee. This involvement has brought back many fond memories of my own junior sporting days, but also gave me insights into the reality of junior sports within a small country town. What I've experienced through my own involvement and other things that I've heard has me concerned about my own children having access to sports in the future. It is a concern already shared and experienced by many. So I just have provided some slides in front of me that I might just refer to. This is about, so the problem I guess I see, I'm not sure what's the timer that I have, is it 5 or 10? 10? Okay, I should have plenty of time. So the problem that I have written down is that junior sports have a diverse range of difficulties, but many of them are quite common across the codes. It's hard to see that sometimes within a smaller town, as a lot of the sports are very fragmented and they're competing against each other for volunteers, for participants, and for sponsorships from businesses. So common things are such as the junior programs losing out to the senior sports despite having more participants per age group, folding of junior sports teams, forcing other children into other sporting codes or even playing in other locations like Bunbury, and the over-reliance on the same volunteers or parents, coupled with a difficult or inability to attract new volunteers. While there is an existing sentiment that the building of the new VC Mitchell precinct will result in increased junior participation, I ask, how will junior sports reorganise their programs, find more volunteers and secure more resources when they're already experiencing difficulties such as those I just mentioned? The impacts of those problems and difficulties are already being realised within the community and having negative impacts. We've seen junior cricket teams fold due to lack of players and volunteers. Many of our best young sports players have left Donnybrook to play in Bunbury or Eton, drawn by more structured programs and stronger competitions. There are persistent rumours that even the Donnybrook Junior Basketball program has been at risk or is at risk of folding. And additionally, the formation of the Preston Thunder Football Club was a direct response to the lack of participation in teenage years players within the Shire. And just this year, one of the teams has folded and is more at risk next season. These examples highlight a growing problem that, left unaddressed, will continue to erode the foundation of our community's sporting culture. So the benefits of a junior sport organisation as I see it, most importantly, number one is for the children. They have better opportunities to participate in sport locally, and they get to stay connected with their friends locally. Number two is for the parents. It's pretty important to me not having to drive to Bunbury every weekend for sport. And also a junior sports organisation could be a mainstay that gives confidence to me as a parent that the junior sport provided is intentional, effective, and it's consistent. And then thirdly, the benefit for the community is a stronger sense of pride and a sense of community. And the longer junior participation within the Donnybrook sporting teams may lead to improved adult sporting numbers. So in addressing the challenges, a junior sport organisation may provide things such as managing and training volunteers within the town. It may provide professional development for coaches and umpires, both of which have been a struggle for all codes. Managing working with children requirements, which I know for a fact from my experience within football, while the requirement isn't super effective either. Providing support to committees and program administration of different codes, seeking grant opportunities, and aligning junior sport programs to any council requirements, such as the VC Mitchell shared precinct management arrangements that are currently underway. So I guess just as a final thought, my vision for the future, if there was to be a Donnybrook junior sport organisation, is that it will match the professionalism of the VC Mitchell precinct. which is a modern facility. It will transform Donnybrook into a unified and thriving junior sports community where every child has equal access to a diverse range of sports and other opportunities. By centralising some resources, fostering collaboration, the junior sports organisation ensures sustainable growth, prevents folding of teams, and creates a robust pathway for young athletes to continue their sporting journeys into adulthood. While I know change does happen and people do move, there are things that the junior sports organisation could provide that could secure more children staying and playing sport within the Shire. This unified approach will not only strengthen our junior sports programs, but also build a stronger, more resilient community that celebrates the diversity, inclusion, and shared experience with others. The sports organisation may serve as a catalyst for strengthening bonds between Donnybrook and the surrounding villages and hamlets of Balingup and Kirrup. It will enhance community connectivity, reducing the need for travel to other towns to participate in sport. By fostering a legacy of sport and healthy living, the organisation could instil lifelong habits of physical activity and teamwork, contributing to overall health and well-being within our community, and also empower the next generation of leaders by using sport as a vehicle for personal growth and development, ensuring that the values of sportsmanship, leadership, collaboration are carried forward, benefiting Donnybrook for generations to come. And I guess just a final thought, because I wasn't sure how to conclude a deputation. It's just a call to action. So I see this as a first step, informally raising the possibility that this could be a need, but also a benefit for Donnybrook and within the Shire. So I seek council or Shire's support in leading the commencement of possibly a group or a working group to establish a JSO, or if that was, a junior sports organisation, and further request that there is Shire representation within the group. And that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. You are right for questions from councillors?
Yeah, of course. Yep.
Yep. Councillors have any questions? Councillor Lindeman.
Sure, thank you very much.
Hello.
I just wanted to ask, is it the volunteers that is the main issue? A shortage of volunteers?
I wouldn't say it's a shortage. I think it was just, the volunteers largely are parents, and I guess that changes as kids get older. I know that just from speaking to cricket today, he's been involved with them for 26 years, and all his kids, most of them are grown now, but there needs to be transitions and things in place that allow handing over of experience and knowledge within the codes. So I think the volunteer side, initial thoughts was something a little bit deeper, that we have such a large demographic here, and it's been noted in many council reports that we've got an ageing demographic as well. Mm-hmm. There's opportunities. They don't have to be parents to volunteer within sport, but they need to have the tools or have the contacts or network to know that there's opportunities available to volunteer and, lighten the load on parents so they can actually just sit and watch their children rather than standing in a canteen 400 metres away for while their kids playing sport somewhere. Yeah.
Councillor Davey.
Thanks for that. That was really good. I've got a kid that travels to Bustleton to play hockey, so
Yep.
I appreciate where you're coming from. And having tried to pick up roles like registrar for one season and wrap your head around it and not have anyone else you can speak to about how to do it, things like that.
Yeah.
I see a lot of value in it, so happy to chat to you afterwards.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Councillor Patrick.
Yeah, good. Thanks for that. Much the same. I coach my kids' soccer team in Balingup. We've got a couple of hundred kids between, out there, and trying to find volunteers and qualified staff and so on is hard. Who do you see ideally owning and running this as a junior sports association? Do you see it as it's a community-led function, or how do you sort of generally see that working? And just onto that, are there other communities that have a similar association operational that we could look at?
Yeah, so going back to the 90s when I was playing junior sport up in Perth at Willerton, I had a very similar arrangement, and I'm sure there'd be some other current ones. Speaking with some people, I believe Wongan Hills has got a joint sport association that work together. Give me another example there. but I guess in a sense of leading, I think it would be an equal footing involvement, because at the end of the day, the kids being number one, town number two, the success of both of those would mean the clubs would be a success. So I don't think clubs necessarily would have power over any others. So I guess it would be who would put their hand up to be a member within the junior organisation to lead that transformation, to make sure that all sports are safeguarded in a way that everyone agrees is a good way to do it. So I think at the moment it's kind of, I've got ideas, but I don't want to kind of be on public record and say that this is the way I recommend it could be. But yeah, if the last page in my deputation was anything, if we can get a working group together to put the nuts and bolts out there, would be a good start, I think.
Councillor Glover?
Thanks. And I guess just by listening to the people around the table, we've all been a part or still are a part of junior sports as well. My question is just in regard to, you'd like to have council be represented at this level as well. What do you see the role of the council being in part of that? What did you call it? Sorry, it wasn't a workshop. It was
Like a working group.
a working group.
Yeah. I think it was more of an insight. Obviously, you don't know what you don't know, and there's a lot of moving parts within the community that you just aren't across. So you can stand up a group that's targeted solely on junior sports and miss a lot of opportunity, or working in counter against something else that might need something from you. So I think just having that representation, so there was someone within the Shire to be able to say, oh, hang on, have you thought about this? Or this is currently happening, or we have plans to do this, and yeah, just kind of help to mould that journey. Yeah.
Can you help me understand the activity that this group would perform to, like, what objective, what purpose will they deliver?
So essentially the purpose, I guess, would be a mission, more of a in-service than anything. So kids' sports about opportunity. It's about participation is probably the two most important things. So I think the group itself would be looking at how a junior sport organisation could be structured. Would it be a committee? Would it be an incorporated association? How would that look? Would it just be a volunteer group of people that meet up every month to have a coffee and talk about things? So that would be probably one, deciding on the model of how it would be run. And I guess the ultimate aim of that group should be to be having equal representation from all the codes, all different sporting codes in town, so that they were abreast of any troubles with certain teams or certain sports. And then if they encountered difficulties, that the junior sports organisation was there as a support to navigate that issue with them. Because a lot of the times with the individual sporting codes, there's a reliance on volunteers who are usually just parents. They're not skilled or equipped or don't have time to delve into those problems. They just fix it for the short term, and they don't think strategically for the long term. So the junior sport organisation would be focused on long term and longevity of sport.
Excellent. So shared knowledge.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Any more questions? Thank you, Mr. Hall.
Great. Thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Moving on to our brand new item, adoption by exception. We have a motion to move that the council adopt the following items en bloc, which is item 7.1, special council meeting minutes, item 7.2, ordinary council meeting minutes, item 8.1, Warren Blackwood Alliance of Council meeting, which is receiving those minutes, 9.1.1, revestment of lot 150 on plan 2170 of Bridge Street to the state, 9.1.3, harvest and vehicle movement ban, SMS communication service and policy, item 9.1.4, Town Planning Policy 9.20, Ancillary Dwelling and Caretakers Dwelling, and item 9.2.1, Schedule of accounts paid as at 31st of July 2024. Would a councillor like to move the motion? Councillor Davey.
I'd like to request that we exclude item 9.2.1 to enable me to make a statement on that item. Information presented in the agenda briefing has changed and that hasn't been communicated publicly, so I'd like to make a statement on that item and not vote on it en bloc.
Is that necessary? Because we've actually had changes from the agenda briefing to the ordinary council meeting before. We haven't noted those in the minutes at all. Okay, thank you, Councillor Davey. So we're removing item 9.2.1. Would councillor like to move the adoption by exception? Councillor Patrick, seconded. Councillor Lindemann, all in favour?
Are you okay if I join the meeting again? It's up to you.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Did you vote for that motion, Anne?
Yes, I raised my hand,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
I know I'm behind you. Thank you.
Thank you. So moving on to item 9.1.2. Weddings at Lingalonga event application. Would a councillor like to move the motion? Oh, sorry, Councillor Goobler is leaving the room. Councillor Goobler has expressed a financial,
Councillor Goobler had a
indirect financial interest. Now, would a councillor like to move the motion? Sorry, the recommendation. Councillor Patrick, seconded. Councillor Lindemann. Councillor Patrick, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you. Look, not particularly. I mean, I think it's a good recommendation, a good report with some good suggestions in there. Ultimately, Lingalonga, it's a fantastic facility. It's privately owned. They do hold functions already, including some big ones like the True Grit event. I think, anything we can do in that sort of tourism space for the community, especially if it's going to have minimal to no impact on surrounding areas, is a really good beneficial thing to support. And I think, the lesser barriers we can put in place to support those things, the better.
Thank you. Councillor Lindemann, would you like to speak to the recommendation?
Yeah, thank you. Just similar, I don't see any problem with this, but I have been out there on several occasions for different events, seen them run, done professionally, set out well. I'd see no reason why this wouldn't go ahead to promote more tourism in the area.
Thank you. Would anyone like to speak against the motion? Would anyone else like to speak for the motion? We'll put that to vote. All those in favour?
I support.
Thank you. Item 9.2.1. Schedule of accounts paid as at the 31st of July 2024. The executive recommendation is to receive the accounts for payment report for the period ended July 2024 as per attachment 9.2.1 with a qualification, with a correction. Okay. Do we need to raise the amendment first? Okay. What would you like to do, Councillor Davey?
I'm not proposing any amendment or clarification to the action, I just wanted to speak to it. Sorry, to the motion, I just wanted to speak to it.
Okay. Would you like to raise the motion? Thank you. Councillor Davey, and seconded. Councillor Bailey. Councillor Davey, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, so I don't have any concerns with the report as such. I just wanted to note that in the agenda briefing I raised a question around EFT 29033 regarding a $25,000 charge in relation to mattress processing, and the response to the agenda briefing was that that was like a typical charge. However, further information came to light during the week that it was actually an upload error, so it had just been given the wrong name against it. It was actually the monthly management charge for the Donnybrook Waste Management Facility. It's since been corrected, and this is now reflected in the schedule of accounts, with the actual mattress processing charges actually at $165. So just given that the information presented at the agenda briefing is now different to what's presented in this item, I just wanted, for transparency and clarity, to actually speak to this item rather than vote it en bloc.
Thank you, Councillor Davey. Councillor Bailey, would you like to speak to the motion? No. Anyone else? Okay, all in favour? It's carried.
I do.
Item 9.2.2, Making and Advertising Animals, Environment and Nuisance Amendment Law 2024. Would a councillor like to move the executive recommendation? Councillor Davey. Second. Councillor Lindeman. Councillor Davey, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, for those who weren't in attendance or didn't watch the agenda briefing online, the administration explained to us that they had employed a consultant to help with the updates here, and that they had not advised that any additional updates were needed to catch up on the last 7 years. So I'm happy to move forward with this one.
Thank you. Councillor Lindeman.
No, thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak to the motion? We'll put that to vote. All in favour? Carried.
Agree.
Item 9.2.3, Making and Advertising Shire of Donnybrook Baling Up Waste Amendment Local Law 2024. Would someone like to move the executive recommendation? Councillor Lindeman, and seconded. Councillor Patrick. Councillor Lindeman, would you like to speak to the motion?
Not really. I'm glad that it's been updated. There was an item in there about the fridges and the doors being removed, which I think happened maybe 10 years ago in other states. So I'm very pleased to see that now there for the disposal of any fridges or lockable items. The locks have got to be removed. That's it.
Thank you. Councillor Patrick. Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak to the recommendation? We'll put that to vote. All in favour?
In favour.
Carried. Moving into 9.3, recommendations from the Chief Executive Officer. 9.3.1, adoption of community grants and donations policy. Councillor Mitchell,
I'll move.
would you like to...
I'll move if I may. Sorry, what's the process now? I move it
Yep.
and then speak.
Would you like to move your recommendation?
I shall, thank you.
Would you like me to read it out, or?
That would be good if you would. There's a bit of a delay.
And without the change. Yeah. So, Councillor Mitchell, we're going to read out the one that was in the document for the notice of items pulled from adopt by exception on
Yes.
block. Okay. That council adopts the draft council policy COMD CP1 community grants and donations attachment 9.3.1 bracket 1. subject to amendments to remove any reference to a reference group and to ensure that all grant and funding applications are reviewed and assessed by the Council through a process determined by the CEO. And 2, determines to allocate $128,000 in the 2024-25 budget for community grants as follows. 2.1, $97,000 service level agreements. 2.2, $22,000 for community grants. 2.3, $4,000 for facility hire donations. 2.4, $2,500 for minor donations. And 2.5, $2,500 for community rubbish collection service. Is that the motion you'd like to move, Anne?
Yes, and also with point 3, directs the Chief Executive Officer to advise of the 2024-2025 Community Grants Program, calling for applications from interested community groups and organisations for grants up to $2,000 for up to a maximum of $2,000, with the applicant period is to be a minimum of 5 weeks. And thank you for reading that out. I'll just clarify where we're going, is that as you read out...
we'll just pop it there and...
yeah.
And we need a seconder.
Thank you.
Yeah. Would someone like to second that motion? Councillor Gubler? Councillor Mitchell, would you like to speak to the recommendation?
Thank you for that, Jess. I've just thought that we have had committees before, and my suggestion is that we simply look at it as a group, and then we, in a workshop, and then we don't have a committee as such. The reason being is when there's any sort of working group or committee that brings a recommendation is that there's expectation that it's a fait accompli that goes ahead. So I'll just draw your attention to the little change of wording, and that is that the subject to amendments to remove any reference to reference group. So that's simply all it is that we will actually deal with the community grants in a workshop, or and then an agenda briefing, and where it's required, it'll be a confidential item, and it'll just go through like a normal working process and item that we do on a regular basis. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. Just a moment, please. Okay. Would Councillor Gubler like to speak to the motion?
I would just support Anne's endeavours in bringing up this matter, so thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak against the motion? Councillor Patrick?
Can I ask a question from Councillor Mitchell in relation to the motion?
Yes.
So I just want
Yes.
Just want clarity. So in relation to the initial proposed policy, the CEO had discretion up to, and I don't have it in front of me, up to an X amount for those small applications. Under your proposed policy, it's saying that all grant and funding applications are reviewed and assessed by the council. And I just want to understand if there is still that ability for the CEO to approve those small amounts without it coming through to council.
Forgive me, I'm a little bit out of whack, as you can well imagine. I would suggest the only thing that's been changed in the policy that was in the agenda item is the fact about the reference group. That's all that's been taken out. The policy will stay as is, as in the agenda, except for that statement having the reference. My understanding, but as I can't read the CEO's body language and what he's saying, I will revert to him for clarity on that.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Glover?
Just to clarify, because I was a little bit confused with it as well, Councillor Mitchell, all the points are remaining the same except for point 4. You just have taken point 4 out. There's no other wording that's different. Is that correct?
That's correct. And there was my understanding in our attachments that had the proposed policy, it did refer to a reference group, and that's the only thing I think that first item 1, talks about remove any reference of to a working group.
Thank you. Would anyone like to speak for the motion? Councillor Davey?
Yeah, just on the policy in general, I just wanted to note that it is a significant reduction in expenditure, and that will be reflected in the budget for 24-25.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak for or against the motion? Okay. Yeah. Anne and I spoke earlier, and we suggested a further amendment that I'll put forward, and that is to replace the reference to a reference group, replace it with a council workshop. So we would change the wording, adopts the draft council policy, community grants and donations, noting the major amendments detailed in this report, determines to allocate, and all that's the same, then directs the Chief Executive Officer to advertise the program, calling for applications, all stays the same. And then in point 4, develop, how will that be worded? So we say, develop terms. That 4 needs to just reflect that it will be just the panel of councillors in a workshop will process that. CEO Clinch, how would we word that?
Well, if it was just a council workshop, you don't need terms of reference because that's... so I guess it would be direct the Chief Executive Officer to submit all grant applications to a council workshop.
For a decision.
I'm just reading that, sorry. So part 4 really, is that just for this year? It's your...
No, that's in general.
General. So the intent was every year it would come to September. So it still comes to council September, but instead of it going through a reference group of councillors, it will go to a council workshop. I mean, to be honest, it's really the same process. It's just rather than having a separate meeting, you're going to take it to a workshop.
I know I've already spoken to it. I just wanted to clarify. So we're putting the word all donations and applications in there, whereas the policy as drafted, council authorises the CEO to approve cash donation requests and donation of facility hire. So if we put all in one line, and then I just want to make sure we've got that clarified once this is actually finalised. I'm all for the concept of it, but I think the CEO should have that delegation, and I just want to make sure the wording doesn't counteract each other. That's all.
It wouldn't, no. It really, this is dealing with your applications for service agreements and community grants during the, on an annual basis. Yeah.
If we go by the original, because that's what we're doing, isn't it? If I raise this amendment, we'd be going by the original one and just putting in the workshop.
That wasn't the intent is, and council can change this each year, the workshop, if that's what it's going to be, will assess applications for community grants and service level agreements. And then you just allocate those other monies, the 4,000 facility hire, the 2,500 minor donations and 2,500 rubbish community grants. They just get put in the budget and people can apply for those during the year directly to the CEO. Whereas these other ones are when you're allocating money at one go.
So what wording are we putting forward for the amendment?
What was the question you asked me?
What was the wording that we put forward as the amendment? So it would be directs the Chief Executive Officer to present applications.
Madam President, if I could, I think the amendment really needs to, it's already part one, which is currently the draft policy references having a reference group. I think you just need to change the draft policy to say any reference group, any reference to a reference group will change to being a council workshop.
Change that to say grant funding for the service level and
Yeah, and
community grants instead of all.
yeah, so Councillor Mitchell has used the term all grant. So I think that's where the confusion has come up. Councillor Mitchell's indicated that's not the intent, so perhaps it would be applications for community grants and service level agreements.
That's the original. So it's only item 4.
So, I mean,
Develop,
the policy really has clearly sets out the process to consider. And so I think the issue is that Councillor Mitchell in part one has referenced all applications, and I guess that's inadvertently picked up the minor things that happened during the year. So if Councillor Mitchell's happy to just change that,
I am very much so. Thank you.
perhaps we can do it without an amendment. But just the mover and the seconder have been happy with that.
okay.
Thank you.
So, Councillor Mitchell can't see this, can she?
No.
So Councillor Mitchell, the suggested wording is changed to part one, council adopts the draft policy, COMD/CP1, community grants and donations, attachment 9311, subject to amendments to remove any reference to a reference group and to ensure that SLAs, which are service level agreements, and community grant funding applications are reviewed and assessed by the council through a process, assessed by the council through a council via a council workshop.
Excellent.
Thank you. That sounds great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
And if I could, I just it may well be that, just as a point of clarification, that this is actually done in 2 workshops, because normally your service level agreements are done early, and then that determines how much money is left over for your community grants. So you may well have a workshop in May or June for service level agreements, and then maybe another one in August, September, when you know how much money is left over for your community grants.
So should we make that plural?
Oh, look, I think
Pedantic.
the policy will clearly set that out.
Okay.
As long as councillors, if that's your understanding, I think that's.
And CEO Clinch, can I have your guidance on the original motion moved by Anne, Councillor Mitchell? Is that okay now to keep proceeding with that, with those changes?
I think it is. If Councillor Mitchell's happy with those changes.
Thank you.
And Councillor Goobler is
Yes.
happy as a seconder?
Yes.
Okay. With that, are there any more comments regarding the recommendation? Nope. We'll put that to vote. All in favour?
Thank you. Vote for.
And councillors, under the local government, I think it's the admin regs, when council resolves contrary to a officer recommendation, we put a reason in. Councillor Mitchell provided a reason with her alternative motion, which I think you have written down there. Are we happy to
Yes.
use that as the reason in the minutes? I can
Yes.
read it out for you. The council had reservations about the inclusion of a reference group and believes that the council should take responsibility for reviewing and assessing each application. The council's happy for that to be the reason in the minutes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 10, elected member motions, of which previous notice has been given. At item 10.1.1, we have the annual review and update the Shire of Donnybrook Bailing Up Workforce Plan. And this has been presented by Lisa Glover. Would you like to move your elected member motion? Thank you, Councillor Glover.
Can I make a correction, please? I did send in a notice to change the elected member's motion, and this isn't it.
Thank you, councillor Glover. Does anyone have that change?
Is that just including the,
When was that sent in, councillor Glover?
that
I
in-house?
sent it in over the weekend. I put it on the form that was very hard to write on, but there were 2 other points to that motion.
Do you have it in?
Do you have it in writing?
Would it be possible to do by amendment? Would you be
Have you got it there in writing?
happy to do
No,
that?
I was putting it in there to be a change of the motion. My reason for that, if I am allowed to elaborate.
If you've got it there, we can just read it out and put it in as an amendment.
It's not an amendment, it's actually a change to the motion as the form suggested. If I can elaborate on that, I can explain why there was a change of motion and not an amendment to the motion.
Okay.
Thank you. The reason for the change of the motion is because I put in this elected member's motion way back when I needed to. However, when it got put into the agenda, there was some changes, i.e. Not the actual motion, but the financial component of it. And I wanted to change the motion to reflect that there would be no financial cost to the Shire. And I also had another point about a review and an update prior to the date of April 2025.
If I may, councillor, I'll probably just explain to you. I did send an email, but perhaps you didn't see it today. This item wasn't included in the excluded items because you don't include notice of motions in the en bloc, because it's your motion, and if you had it in the en bloc and exclusion, technically another councillor could come in and do an alternative and take that right away from you. So it's not, a notice of motion is always, it's your motion, so it can't be dealt with by exclusion. So for that reason, I guess we didn't look at that form you submitted thinking that it wasn't going to be dealt with by exclusion. So apologies for that. But I mean, you still have the right to put it forward.
I have my computer up and running now. It just had a little lapse. I will just resend that to you if you like, and then you can see the words that I had for it. Councillor requests.
May I ask Councillor Glover to Councillor D'Ella? Hello. Whoops, frightened.
Did I not DL it to everybody when I did it?
I thought I saw it. It came through under. Bear with us. We'll just see if we can find.
The form was very hard to write on, so it was a little bit tricky to use. But, okay, so the first, if I can just, I'll send it to you if I can. Oh, it's not much. Okay, so the first part remains the same. Then there's another point to it as well, which says the plan is to be reviewed and updated using existing policies and procedures, and will be no additional cost to the Shire. yeah, now I've got the option of changing the one word that I wanted to change on it before. So there's that part. The next part is the CEO is to provide progress of the review to councillors by November 2024. And the last point was completed workforce plan will become a public document and published on the Shire of Donnybrook Bailing Up website in the Strategic and Corporate Planning Documents link. Can I just add that this form, what it says, if a different motion is proposed, please provide the details below. And so that's where I popped it in as well about the change of the motion.
CEO Clinch?
No, that's correct. And look, this is the first time we've done the en bloc and by exclusion, at least this current council. So I think it's always going to be teeth and pains with it. So I guess in future, it really should only be limited to officer reports, because a motion, elected member motion, notice of motion is very much different.
Excuse me, CEO Lynch, just your microphone's on.
Sorry. Understandable. What we can do is, under clause 10.9 of the standing orders, I guess you haven't got a seconder yet, but with the consent of the seconder, you can amend your substantive motion without moving it as an amendment. There are quite significant changes, and normally you only do that for minor changes. But I guess if you don't want to do them as amendments, and bearing in mind that the confusion around the process, perhaps it's something that could be allowed on this occurrence. But we haven't got a seconder yet, so we probably need to get a seconder before you ask that question.
We've got the recommendation now. Is there a seconder for the recommendation? Councillor Bailey?
So
Councillor...
I am happy with that. And I guess the challenge that I have had is that after I put the motion in, there was further information that was put into it. Some of it's really helpful, but the financial aspect and the risk rating I found to not be helpful for this motion. So that's why I've made it. I changed the motion and I added to it as well. So if you'd like, I can do my opening.
Councillor Glover, would you like to speak to your recommendation?
Okay. So the reason for this is that the Shire of Donnybrook Bailing Up is proposing to spend a large sum of money, which I won't disclose at this point, this financial year on salaries and wages. This amount equates to almost 80% of the total rates collected. That's almost 80% of the total of ratepayers' money collected is going towards wages and salaries for the Shire of Donnybrook Bailing Up. With an outdated workforce plan, how can we be sure that we have the right balance of skills and abilities to provide the required services and to achieve our proposed set outcomes? Again, it's proposed nearly 80% of rates collected will be spent with an out-of-date plan. To say we will be flying blind is probably a bit harsh, but that expression does come to mind. There is a need to ensure that staff expenses are essential and services are provided effectively and efficiently. I believe that there are opportunities to find ways to work smarter and not harder. An updated review plan will help map skills required and identify overlaps or duplicates. It will help to understand what training staff need and plan towards succession. Generally, staff will be more satisfied when working to their ability and aiming towards higher duties, etc. However, there is also a need to restructure expenditure with the aim of delivering efficiencies and reducing spending. We need a plan to ensure that the overwhelming majority of our budget is spent prudently. It may be possible with some tweaking and prioritising of more essential current needs that we could trim our wages and salaries down to maybe 70% of rates revenue. Until we try, how will we know? The workforce plan is part of the integrated planning and reporting framework as shown on page 46 of this agenda. When the informing strategies are updated, asset management plan, long-term financial plan and workforce plan, the annual budget is guided effectively. These documents are essential and require updating annually to ensure the staff is on track to delivering services effectively and efficiently and within budget. When I ran for council, I spoke of these plans and the necessity for them to be updated to provide good governance and accountability for our ratepayers. I also spoke of a governance calendar to assist. If we had a governance calendar, this elected member's motion would be redundant, as the workforce plan would simply sit within business as usual annual plan for the executive team. The changes to this motion that I am presenting tonight are aimed at ensuring the plan is reviewed, updated internally and not outsourced at an estimated cost to ratepayers of $30,000. The Shire of Donnybrook Balingup is reported to have a policy where staff performance reviews and position descriptions are up to date. These reviews should inform the workforce plan and help guide structural direction going forward. If these documents are up to date and managers and executive staff review their staffing levels, duties performed and outcomes achieved, the workforce plan should be well on the way to being completed. Our Shire's managers and executive staff have the clearest insight into our staff performance and are best placed to plan for improved outcomes, with the need for considerable outside expenditure at the time when we are all having to tighten our belts, so to speak. I'm also proposing the CEO is to provide an update, which can be verbal, to councillors in November 2024. The update is to show that progress is underway and to identify any barriers or challenges in reviewing and updating the plan, which will be presented to Council in April 2025. I'm also proposing the completed workforce plan to be published on the Shire website, offering transparency and accountability. A simple Google search of other local governments will show that it is common and typical practice for a workforce plan to be published for community members to view. I cannot see any valid reason why the workforce plan should not be published. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Glover. Councillor Bailey, would you like to speak to them?
Councillors, through the chair. Look, I think we clearly have challenges with our finances, and I think the sooner council can get on top of that, the better for the ratepayers. Now, the officer's recommendation, we're talking 25, 26. Our new CEO will be here in a couple of months' time, and I think the calibre of the person that this person is, that he'll be able to make a recommendation of some sort to us later on this year to at least start working on this. And that's our priority, to try and minimise the cost of rates to the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. Would anyone like to speak against the motion? Councillor Lindeman?
Yeah, thank you. Look, I appreciate the reasons behind this motion, because we're all out to want to reduce costs, but I do not support the motion for the following reasons. If a consultant was used for the most recent workforce plan in 21-22 at a cost of $15,180, which included GST, and with a recent quote now up at around $30,000, then this would indicate it requires a substantial and dedicated amount of time by a qualified person to produce. This would be time that our newly appointed CEO would be taken away from other priority business, such as asset rationalisation and optimisation, which can more than return significant long-term savings to the Shire, reducing the financial impact on ratepayers without reducing services and delivery times. Secondly, our Shire is made up of people who deliver to the community. We do not sell items or make products. Our people deliver service. If you cut services but ask for higher rates, I don't see that to be particularly reasonable. How might things look? Well, you could reduce hours at the rec centre or take longer to approve housing plans. You could wait longer to have a fallen tree cleared from the road, or just not bother with Christmas decorations or seasonal flowers in the street and the garden beds. Our Shire staff are the services we provide. If it is saving you are looking for, the Shire executives have already demonstrated a reduction in the budget of 1.62 FTE, which would be, I don't know, more than 80K to the bottom line. As councillors, we have given ourselves a 4% pay rise. Our job is important, but no more important than Shire staff. Should we consider reducing council from 9 paying councillors to 7? It would save us some money. As staff leave, expertise and intellectual property goes with them. A slash and burn approach to cost cutting of jobs is demoralising to staff, reduces productivity and often starts a flow-on effect of resignations. These outcomes are not beneficial to stability, nor being in a position for successful grant applications or for shovel-ready projects. We need the best people to be the difference when it comes to the success of our Shire, its prosperity, happiness and satisfaction of its community members. Our Shire is only as good as the people who work within it. Let's not head down the road of a false economy. Let's wait for our new CEO to assess the team.
Thank you, Councillor Lindeman. Would anyone else like to speak for the motion? Councillor Davey.
So I am really supportive of the motion. However, I have some reservations about timing. So obviously you've touched on that employee costs are our biggest expense. And our people are also our biggest asset. And I think it's absolutely necessary to be regularly reviewing this plan. I was surprised to hear that hadn't been reviewed recently. So my reservations around timing are that with our new CEO coming on board in October, it would really give him a month to get his self settled in before he has to provide an update on what's going. So it already has to be in motion by then, and I don't think that's enough time for him. Also in the administration's response to the elected member motion, it talked about the timing of the council plan. And I think it makes sense to do the council plan and then cascading from that to do workforce planning to support it, cascading to objective setting for staff. So that makes absolute sense. It's just the timing. I think perhaps the council plan should come first. And I think objective setting, setting a target of perhaps 10% on reduction would be premature. I know you were just saying as an example, but
yeah,
I think
point of order, it was just an imagine if it could be.
So I think that would be premature at this point. I don't want to give anyone false hope. But I am supportive of the intent of the motion and having that workforce plan being regularly updated. I just have some reservations about timing.
Thank you, Councillor Davey. Councillor Patrick.
Thank you. So yeah, look, in principle, look, we should have a workforce plan anyway. It should be reviewed on every 2 years and then a big formal review every 4 years is my understanding. I believe that should have happened. I'm under the understanding that it hasn't happened. I've done a comparison of a bunch of other Band 3 shires around their FTE, their budget in relation to budget per resident for administrative staffing, and we are actually relatively low in the scheme of things compared to a whole bunch of other Band 3 local governments. They don't all disclose their actual FTE, so I couldn't work off their FTE numbers, but the employment budget as against the number of population for the shire, we are actually quite low. To effectively do a strategic workforce plan, things like effective talent management need to come into place. So you identify the shortcomings, you identify the gaps in your team, and you take time to build those people up. To do that every 12 months, you're not going to see a significant change over that period of time to realistically provide you with informed, decision making around what your workforce needs to look like. It is a plan over time, which is why they are a 4-year plan. They're not annually reviewed to make determinations on an annual basis. I too have concerns around the timing of it. I think November, I think is unreasonable given that the new CEO is starting in October. I also think something else that's hard to be able to forecast. Part of your strategic plan is you look at your other services that are available, including external contractors. And with the ever-changing environment we're facing at the moment, the availability, the cost of contractors makes it very, very hard to understand what services we need to deliver in-house compared to what's available to contract in. And other shires do succeed very well, to reduce their workforce by increasing contractors. But most people trying to build a house or do any works, get plumbers, anything else, know that at the moment it's very hard to get contractors. So we do run a big risk in that space by reviewing it so frequently, because you can't actually see any trend patterns happening to the availability of external services. So whilst, like Councillor Davey, I think in principle, the workforce plan needs to exist, it needs to be a public document, and it needs to be reviewed regularly. I just think an annual review based on what a workforce plan should look like, as Councillor Lindeman said, it requires skill, it requires a lot of time and dedication. We're saying that we need to review our workforce, but we're going to be putting a lot more work on our workforce to review our workforce, which seems very counterproductive on an annual basis. So this motion, as it's presented, I don't agree with. I do agree in principle with the concept, but I don't agree with the way that this one's presented at this point. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Patrick. Would anyone else like to speak to this recommendation? I'd like to. Similarly, I like the concept of saving money, and I think we've done a brilliant job throughout our more than 10 council workshops to that aim. However, my commercial knowledge and many years doing budgets for medium and large corporations, the workforce plan is something that comes after your strategic plan. And from your strategic plan, which captures your vision, and then underneath that you have your goals, underneath that you have your objectives. Those objectives drive the tasks that you want your staff to carry out. The workforce plan is drawn from the objectives. You never do it the other way around because you'd just be looping back again. So and I think that's also reflected in the executive comments as well, and that diagram that CEO Clinch provided that showed how the local government organisation's best practice model of carrying out their strategic planning presents that. Another problem I have with this is that when you do a workforce plan, you don't predetermine what your outcome's going to be. So, with the greatest respect, Councillor Glover, this puts forward an outcome already that you're going to reduce headcount before you've even got your strategic objectives and knowledge of what headcount you need to carry out that plan. So it's a little bit putting the cart before the horse. And to do a workforce plan with already determining that you want to do a headcount reduction is flawed. Just correcting a statistic to Councillor Glover that we don't measure, or I've never measured, employee cost as being a percentage of a particular stream of revenue.
Point of order. Point of order. This did come through from correspondence from the CEO just recently, that's what the cost was, and that was the percentage as well.
I can overrule that, I think. My experience, what I'm saying is my experience of doing this exercise is that you always measure employee cost based on operating revenue. So my preference would be to measure employee cost with rates plus our grants income that relates to operations, because that grants income relates to operational activity, which drives invoicing, tracking costs, doing works that the grants provide. So that all comes to any income that relates to employee activity is what should be in the measure. And finally, I think the work that we've asked the CEO or the Executive Committee to do, where we as councillors have tasked them with achieving a 3% efficiency dividend. They have done that. They've done it through natural attrition, so they've already dropped 1.7 headcount, I think it was, or 1.9. And they've also found other savings to exceed the 3% task that we placed on them in our draft budget workshops. And they've, I think, achieved around about the 4% mark. So I'm encouraged by that, and I'd be concerned that this would imply that, you know, we're doubling up on that without preempting what a workforce plan might bring about. My second concern, my other concern is that this recommendation proposes that workforce plan be done internally at no cost, and ideally a workforce plan is something that preserves the anonymity of employee feedback, and that is difficult to do and capture the full quality of your review without having an external party doing it for you. And I think that's all I've got to say. Would anyone else like to speak to the recommendation? Yes, Councillor Davey.
Sorry, I've already spoken for the recommendation.
Question?
But I have a question whether any alternate or amended motions have been put forward for this item?
Not yet.
No, okay.
No. If no one else would like to speak to the recommendation, would Councillor Glover like to have right of reply?
I just wanted to speak more for the recommendation because I was able to put in that. Can I still speak for that as well, or is that what I put forward was that...
You have right of reply.
I only have right of reply and that's it? Because if I speak now, then I'm closing the item off.
Yes.
Okay, right of reply. Okay, so yes, our staff are very important and I agree with that particular point, and that is why these documents are so important to be reviewed and updated, not rewritten, reviewed and updated. So the annual, so I would urge my fellow councillors to vote for this elected member's motion for 7 reasons. The annual review and update workforce plan was, to review it annually, was a CEO recommendation. It is actually written in the previous workforce plan on page 4 of the attachment. The plan was released in 2022. I want to reiterate again, and I understand that we could look at the percentage of revenue that goes towards wages. However, recently the CEO released information saying that wages were almost 80% of rates collected. That was something that came through. And we don't have an up-to-date plan. So there's a lot of money being spent, our ratepayers' money being spent without an up-to-date plan. The workforce plan is an integrated planning reporting framework and it informs the annual budget. Now, I understand that there are other documents that inform that as well, but we don't have them up to date. We have what we have, and we have a workforce without a plan that are trying to implement the plans that we have. The plans we have are the plans we have. So we've got to start somewhere with that. My suggestion would be that, yes, we need to update the strategic plan and we need to update the council plan too. However, this is really important because we're looking at trying to make sure we spend our money effectively. If we had a governance calendar, then this wouldn't even be a motion coming through. It would just be happening as an annual thing anyway. And all those documents would be prepared annually and in a timely manner. It should be within the scope of our executive and management team to prepare a workforce plan internally without the need of a consultant at the cost of $30,000. I am confident that our executive team can rise to the challenge, and they would also know the staff better than an external consultant as well. I'm not asking anyone to rewrite the plan. I'm asking people to update and review the plan. And it should be within the scope of our management team to do that as well. Sorry. Yeah, because the understanding that they have about our staff members is a better understanding than an external consultant. Providing an up-to-date update in November, which can just be verbally. It's how is it all going? Are all the performance reviews up to date? Are the position descriptions up to date? Because these are not CEO jobs, these are executive and managers' jobs to make sure that they're leading their staff in those ways and doing that. So it's that the review does not have to be a report. It's just, yep, this is all ticking along fine. I can't see any problems with actually producing this report in April. Getting the report done in April is quite important because then it forms the next year's budget. If we leave it any later, we're really having trouble with informing next year's budget. And next year's budget is so important to be working towards now and from now on, because otherwise we're left at the last minute trying to get all of these things in place. The workforce plan helps to put all the money and the funding straight into the budget, so it should help in that way. And to ensure transparency and accountability, I am seeking the plan to be published on the Shire website. It is really typical practice to do so. I just Googled different ones and I found most local governments that I looked at, there was only one that I found that didn't have it, but they had it incorporated into their strategic plan. All the other local governments have these documents that I looked at and they all have them in place. So I'm urging my fellow councillors to look towards how we can do this better and with a plan. It's a lot of money being spent without an up-to-date plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Glover. We'll put that to vote. Oh, what's that? No. We'll put that to vote. All those in favour?
I'm in favour.
And all those against? Carried. Item 11, new business of an urgent nature introduced by decision of the meeting. There is none. And we have no items in item 12 closed to the public. Item 13, closure. And I'll declare the meeting closed. Oh, sorry, the Shire will have the next agenda briefing session on the 18th of September 2024 at 5 p.m. in the council chambers. And I'll declare the meeting closed at 6:23 p.m.